Welcome everyone, thanks, and thanks to Mac for a great presentation. To give you guys a little background on me, I am one of the founders of EdgeCast Networks and am now the Chief Marketing Officer of Verizon Digital Media Services. We're a division of Verizon that's responsible for all of the content delivery and broadcast technology and help a whole bunch of customers around the world scale and improve their websites. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how we do that and some of the trends that we've noticed in the marketplace, especially as it involves cloud technology and the things that we all have to be aware of as we build a bigger and better internet with the threats of all the things that can go wrong that are out there today. So the internet is changing, we all know that, but how the internet is changing every single day impacts how we as a development community, we as builders of the internet, we as stewards of the internet, upgrade, monitor, manage, and build our websites. And so when you take a look at the websites that we're building today and how they're evolving, reliability is one of the key components that we have to consider, right? We have to think, how do we make sure the website's up and available? What are the trends in terms of consumption patterns? How are they changing? What are the demands that are going to be put on those websites? And let's take a look at some of the changes that we're noticing. First of all, if you take a look at 2009, here's a great example of one of our customers, Build.com, a commerce website that at the time was about 600 kilobytes in size. Today, that would not be considered a heavy website. And you take a look at sort of what their priorities were back then. Well, the priorities were basically flash interactivity on the website. They had a video illustration of how some of their products and services would work. There's Ajax, there's recommendations, there's personalization. Those are all basically a component of what they were doing. But if you take a look at 2014, the website has more than quintupled in size, 3,000 kilobytes. It's a heavy website. It's got a whole lot more going on, but the priorities have changed. What makes it heavy have changed. Mobile is the #1 priority now. As we think about how people consume, how people research, how people look for things that they want to buy and things that they want to do, they're doing it often from a mobile device. Personalization. They're logging in to social media. They're searching from within different personalized applications, recommendations. And then, of course, video, Ajax Flash is still there, but at a much lower weight. And that puts a burden on websites. That puts a burden on us as developers and cloud infrastructure providers to make sure that we're delivering the right technology to host and accelerate those websites. Video has become more and more important than ever. And so here's some stats that I found that I thought were really interesting. Starting sort of along the bottom, everybody has figured out that video makes experiencing websites better. So whether or not you're explaining in a tutorial perspective how your stuff works, whether you're engaging with entertaining content that captures people's attention, allows you to interact longer with them on your website, serve more ads, entertain, or whether you're trying to optimize for how you're found on the internet, because now you can put videos up on different tube sites. You can go ahead and syndicate your content out there and get people to hear about your brand, your product, your service, or your content more effectively. And marketers are using it in everything they do. Whether it's an email marketing that links back to a video, whether it's marketing through video, it's a huge part of what we do. So one great example I like to use of just how big an impact video has is the recent change that Facebook made by adding autoplay onto its scroll. So here I am one day, just rolling through my Facebook list, and suddenly I noticed that every video turns on by itself. You can imagine the oomph sound that happened to the rest of the network providers out there when that happened. I mean, literally, it's like a freaking piano dropped on top of us. Because the massive amount of video streaming that was now happening with nobody pressing a button, nobody requesting it, dramatically changed. That's a 785% increase both in video ad and post replays on Facebook just from that one change. And that was a huge moment for us this year when we realized, wow, everybody is doing this. Everybody is finding a way to make video a critical part of what they do. Now, mobile and video tie very closely together. So this is not my son, actually, but if you look at my house and you come home at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I haven't ever been home then, but my wife tells me this is what happens. Apparently, every one of my 4 children is looking at an iPad or an iPhone or a television or a Wii or an Xbox or some device is lit up and they're engaging with them. And the numbers clearly show that. Smartphone proliferation is rampant. By 2018, 82% of all mobile users in the US will have smartphones. 50% of all mobile users globally will have smartphones. It's a key part of what we do, and the websites that we power, the interactive experiences that we create, have to assume that people will be consuming this content, interacting with us, shopping with us on smartphones. And of course, the threats are quite intense. We're under attack. We're under attack every day. Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't know it. If you just take a look at some of the recent data from Verizon's 2014 Data Breach Investigations Report, you can see, just by way of example, the massive hockey stick of attacks that have increased across the network, across every single website that we interact with, across our day-to-day experience. So not only should you as an individual, as a consumer, be paranoid, be worried, be concerned, but as a website owner, as a commercial enterprise on the internet, you should be really scared. There's a lot of things you have to worry about now that you never had to worry about before. Let's think about what website attackers do. They're stealing personal information. They're trying to scrape the data on your site. They definitely are trying to, access things and get access to secret information, capture your intellectual property, or just take down your darn website, DDoS it, take it down, make it unavailable. They'll run an extortion racket. They'll deface your site and more. So if you take a look at the motivation behind the attacks today, cybercrime, which is basically people trying to steal and make money, more than 70%. It's the great majority. But there's hacktivism, there's cyber espionage. You have an obligation to protect yourself. You have an obligation to your customers as cloud providers to protect them. So here's how they're doing it. There's multiple attack vectors. So denial of service attacks that really go after the network layer, DNS and customer origin. Then there's denial of service attacks that are attacking the application layer. And then there's web application attacks now, which are proliferating at a huge ratio. We can see amongst our global customer base, this is going up at a crazy number. And then multi-vector attacks are increasing as well. So I'm not going to dive too much into security today. There's lots of breakout sessions that will go into this. But just keep in mind, you have to scale your website in a way that allows you to leverage both the availability of the cloud and the protection that the cloud offers to thwart all of these various different things. And then there's another big trend that is affecting how we all build and scale our websites, and that's sales. People have actually figured out how to make money on the internet. Woohoo! And it's not just the porn guys. People have figured out actually how to sell stuff and how to advertise. So let's start with advertising. So US internet advertising totaled $23 billion just for the first 6 months of this year. That's a huge number. People are figuring out how to get compelling ads to get clicked on, to get viewed, to sell products, to increase the effective marketing of brands. That's a big deal. Think about 10 years ago. When you went on the internet and you saw all kind of random stuff, it wasn't targeted to you, it didn't relate to you, you didn't really want to buy whatever that weird thing was. Well, now you're getting the right ads served to you in the right way. And this is the beginning of what advertising will become. On the flip side, there's another way people are making money online. They're actually selling things. They're not just advertising. They're driving commercial transactions. So e-commerce is the only trillion-dollar industry growing at double-digit percentage every single year. If you take a look at the big players, the absolute biggest internet retailers, we all know the statistics. They're growing at a huge rate. But what was really compelling for us is we took a look at the smaller guys. E-retailer growth rates by merchant size. And you can take a look at this stat. It's really compelling. The retailers in the internet retailer second 500, those ranked number 500 to 1,000, they grew at 17.7% on average, and that's faster than the top internet retailers. If you take a look at the proliferation of every site you go to and just how many of them are enabled for some sale. And by the way, a sale isn't always a dollar transaction. When you engage with a website and you want to become a member of their community and you sign up to be a member of their community in a social setting, they just made a sale. When you go and you decide to like something or friend it or poke it or basically send a link to someone, you've engaged in a transaction. You've made that site part of your ecosystem. You've bought something. You've bought into what they're doing. And that, from my perspective, is a transaction. That's a sale. So now what does this all mean for you? Great. Internet's growing, James. Wow, it's really scary out there. Lots of video needs. Yep. What do I do about it? Well, let's talk about the things that we think are most important on Verizon's side, what we do every single day to help our customers deal with all these trends. First thing is site performance. If you take a look at how long it takes you to get angry at a website, what is that moment where you're just like, I'm never coming back to this site? It's about 2 seconds. And by the way, that's sad that all of us have that kind of attention span, but it's about 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, you learn that you never want to come back to this website. And there's a massive potential for site abandonment and lost shoppers, lost ads, lost anything. If you're on a website for matching with other people and you've lost the love of your life because your page didn't load in 2 seconds and you're going to die alone. But reality is, site performance is a huge piece of what you do. So what do we all have to do? We have to make sure that our websites load super fast. So if you look along the bottom here, and I talk about some of the technology choices that you can make to ensure that you have a fast website, you start with Content Delivery Network, CDN. Make sure that your site can scale, handle peak capacity, leverage the edge servers of a CDN distributed all over the world. Way to go. When you host, make sure you're right hosting company. If you have an origin where you store your content, your origin needs to be highly available and connected to the internet with really fast connections. It needs to be multi-homed, multiple connections to the internet. So the ISP that you use to connect to the internet, the choice that you make with the cloud provider and who they connect to, where their data centers are located, how they're on net, that's a key component of how to make your site fast. So CDN, ISP, and origin, source, and hosting are key components you need to think about for site performance. Then there's this concept of site availability. That means that not just the site is fast, but gosh darn it, when you go to it, it's actually up and available. So I use the example of if Apple can't stream the iPhone 6 event, is there really an enterprise story? So there was just a lot of bad press that they got because this one streaming event didn't go off so well. It wasn't really up and available. And users, they will not compromise. If your content's not available, it simply doesn't go unnoticed. They won't come back. And when you're in a success-based situation, like Apple is, when everybody wants your stuff, everybody comes to your site or watches the video or wants to hear about it, it's not like you're getting attacked. Everybody comes there. You definitely don't want to let them down. So that means that you have to also have the right CDN for streaming. You have to think about how do you measure site availability? Do you have third-party monitoring services that you've signed up for? Are you using Catchpoint? Are you using Gomez? Are you looking at your stats and your data on a regular basis? Are you planning for your weaknesses? Do you have the right DNS host? Are you actually scaling your DNS so your domain name service is available and scalable? These are the things that you have to think about in the cloud when you've got success and you've got attacks. Speaking of attacks, I go back to now the website security piece, and there's 4 questions that we really like to ask our customers when they come to us and they say, what do I do, what do I need to do to really protect my site? It involves much more than just an anti-denial of service solution. It starts, first of all, with your DNS infrastructure. And what that is your site able to be found? So you think about how the internet works, and you go searching for things on the internet. The way people find you is that you have a resilient, a sort of healthy, a very highly available DNS service. That's the first piece to it. And a lot of people take that for granted. They're like, I got a domain with some guy I bought the domain with, and it's over here, it's over there. It's a really important, critical infrastructure decision you need to think about. And by the way, the DNS service providers, they get attacked all day long. And it's a weak point, and if one of the bad guys comes and takes that down, you're in trouble. The next piece is thinking about how do you mitigate the effect of a denial of service attack, right? Do you run a web application firewall? So if you look along the bottom here, it says, is your site available and are your web applications secure? So site availability means basically, is somebody going to your site and trying to log in, not just once or not just twice, but they're trying to log in with 7,000 bot computers 1,000,000 times a second, and they're trying to take you down. Or they're doing a SYN flood to your various applications. Is your web application firewall service blocking them? And if you don't have a web application firewall, call up one of the many vendors who sell them and just find out why not. So looking at web application firewall, looking at DNS, and looking at DDoS mitigation technologies are going to help. Finally, secure content, basically SSL. If you take a look at how traffic is moving, today everything's moving from HTTP to HTTPS. Everything is moving onto encrypted communication. And that's simply because we don't want everybody to sniff what we're saying. We don't want them to know what we're saying. It's none of their business what we're saying back and forth when we communicate between a website and a browser. And if you do it over SSL, you're going to ensure a greater level of security. And then we go back to this video concept. So I talked about how important video is. Yes, we all know we need it. But why? Well, consumers interact much better with your website if there's videos on it. So here's some stats. 57% of consumers say that product videos make it more confident that they're going to buy that item. 41% of consumers say they're more likely to share product videos if they have them. And 69% of consumers said they'll watch videos 2 or more times if the information videos are really sort of helpful, right? It helps them make a purchase decision. So when we talk to online retailers, when we talk to folks who are trying to sort of make a compelling marketing message or just trying to prove a thesis online with what it is that they want to promote, video is one of the most important things that they can do. Okay, so we all know it's valuable. We all know we want to do it, but how? When you think about streaming online, there's a whole lot of ways to do it. A lot of folks start out simple. You can go to an online video platform. There's guys like Brightcove and Uyala and many more. And you can get a turnkey solution where you can have a player on your website, you have a content management system, you get the content up and running, you're good to go. Now, if you're going to go and have to do a big sort of linear channel, scale at a broadcast level, you're probably going to look for other vendors who can do things a little bit easier. But one thing I like to sort of illustrate in this is one of the challenges that we've seen out there, and that's making your content multiple device ready. So on that traditional approach along the top, folks who are doing a lot of video, they have to encode it, right? So they put a little encoding farm together. Then they have to basically get storage for that. And they have to figure out their DRM solution. They put that into a content management system. They pop that onto the internet, and then they have to make it like formatted and transcoded for, I don't know, 135,000 different devices. It's just a huge number of devices. And that takes up a lot of time and money. And so our approach to that has been, let's look for a way to find a single format. Let's use one single format to deliver and store all of your video. And so we've had an approach at Verizon that's worked really well for us that I would highly recommend for anyone else is stick with a single format, look at technology vendors who've got a way to encode and deliver to all devices ubiquitously. And then finally, there's this concept of be ready to sell. So if you're an e-commerce site and you're making $100,000 per day, 1 second of page delay could cost you $2.5 million in lost sales every year. So when you're a big internet retailer, these numbers make a difference. A 5% performance increase makes a difference. A 1% performance increase in your page makes a difference. Any downtime makes a difference. And this is a nice other stat. 79% of shoppers who are dissatisfied with website performance are less likely to buy from the same site again. So when you take a look at what it means for your website to be up and available, you have to have the right products. They have to be available in your inventory management system. You need to make sure that the price is right. You as a retailer have a lot of stress just figuring out how to make sure you're a good retailer. Do you really want to also worry about whether your store is open, the doors are open, the lights are on, the air conditioning is good, that you've got insurance policies to make sure somebody trips and falls? You worry about that for your regular store. But for your online store, there's just as much to worry about. And these are the things you have to take into account if you're going to build a robust e-commerce presence on the internet. So the tech choices you want to think about there, dynamic site acceleration. What that basically means you're going to take any application, any transaction on your website that is not static or cacheable, and you're going to accelerate that with a content delivery network. You're going to look at web application firewall to protect that application from folks who are trying to do bad things to it. You want to look at PCI certification. A lot of the big e-commerce providers necessitate that they're PCI certified so that your credit card information is protected and you're protecting your customers' information. You need a high-performance global content delivery network. You need global reach because shoppers are not local. Shoppers are absolutely global. And then front-end optimization is a pretty cool way to prioritize how content on your page loads and compress and optimize different browser reads basically back to your web service. And so, of course, I couldn't end any presentation without telling you a little bit about what we do and how we do it. Our approach has been that, you got all this great content, whether it's live events or video, whether it's channels or digital assets, whether it's web pages, and it all has to get out to folks. And what we try to bring to the table is the concept of scale. Obviously, you think of Verizon, you think of reliability, massive global scale. of reach, which is that not only are we just here in the US, but we have to connect to everyone. Because when you're the phone company, when you're the internet, when you're the network, you have to make sure that you can deliver not just to somebody who's on our network, but to someone who's in any network in any world, in any part of the US, in any part of the globe. And then finally, from a quality and security perspective, I think we really differentiate in terms of always having that can you hear me now perspective on our network as well as on our wireless service. One of the other things that's kind of interesting is that we service over 10,000 customers today on our content network and on our delivery network. At this very second, we're basically deflecting more than 1 million individual attacks to the network. Every single second, we're bumping off over 1 million attacks that are happening to our customers. And if you take a look at the scale that's necessary to do that, there's few operators out there that can handle that. We power all of Twitter, for instance, so more than 150 million, more than 15 billion tweets delivered per month, 150 million plus hours streamed. These are the kind of things that you want to think about when you're choosing a vendor who can help you in this space. And then finally, if you take a look at our overall solution, it's a next generation platform. Our differentiator in the marketplace, well, what do? We try to combine all of the comprehensive components together into one solution to give you what you're looking for, how you're looking to solve that problem. So Verizon Digital Media Services is the group. We don't have questions and answers sort of set up for everyone, but I wanted to really just let you know that we're here to service you. You can also reach me. Easiest address is james@edgecast.com or james.segil@verizon.com. I'm happy to answer questions about scaling and operating in today's crazy internet, and appreciate the time today. Thank you.